Welcome to the Seven Crosses series for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, and we are picking up the series on the 12th of September 1955. Now this video is going to consist of three parts, and the first part is going to be a fairly long feedback session on your comments for a reason which I'll explain once I actually get into that section. The second section, we're going to be doing some long-term planning, because I've now reached the point with this town where I've got to start thinking about getting out and expanding Coal City, and also thinking a little bit about the long-term future. And then in the final part, I'm going to be focusing very much on trying to get the maximum amount of crops delivered and stored ready for the next cycle, because I did a calculation just before I started the video, and if these 4 fields over here start being harvested, which I'm very much hoping they will, we will not have the storage capacity, but I do have a little bit of a plan that may get the maximum number of crops in and also possibly aid my economy a little bit. So that out the way, what I want to do now is go into the section where I'm going to be giving you some feedback on your comments on the previous video. Now, the reason why this section is going to be quite long is the fact that I did have a couple of comments related to early starts related to 1900. Now, I've been looking at possibly doing a 1900 start, so I've been doing a bit of test play. So I thought what I'd do in this section, I know it's not related to this series whatsoever, but I thought I'd just give you a bit more feedback and show you things, which is a lot easier than just trying to type the answer in on the comments. Now, I'm aware that some people may not be interested in this anyway whatsoever, so what I'll be doing is putting a timestamp up now for anyone who wants to jump to the second part of the comments section, where I'll be talking about comics directly related to this series. If you decided to stay, welcome. Just to give you a bit of a background, I've been doing quite a lot of test play around the 1900 start, simply just to get a feel for what a series which I intend to start fairly soon, once I've got a fairly strong hold on the mechanics. I want to emphasize that if you start back at that time period, you can forget all your normal gameplay. The normal rules no longer apply. It's a totally different world for the reasons which I'm just going to talk about now. The first thing is that when you go back to 1900, in fact, what I would say is don't start in 1900. The date I'm heading for is 1908 for reasons which I'm not going to go into great depth here. But what you need to be aware of is that when you start early, especially back in 1900, you are totally dependent on the modding community for vehicles and buildings if you want to go for the authentic look. That means that all the normal game mechanics are effectively pushed to one side. And so for anyone who's planning on starting on 1900, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of what I discovered about modded vehicles. Now, I'm not going to go through them all in great detail. And what I'm going to do is start with ships. Prior to about 1938, ships are in incredibly short supply. In fact, the only ship that's available in 1900, and it goes through to 1993, is a ship called a Clyde Puffer. This was a very small general cargo ship that plied its trade up around the islands of Scotland, delivering goods to very remote communities. It's a very slow ship with very limited capacities, and from the respect of if you're starting as a Soviet in the Soviet Republic, or what would have been old Russia under the Tsar, this is a ship that's actually comes under effectively what I would call the NATO countries, although NATO didn't exist in 1908. Now, the next ship to appear is actually a US ship, which is called the Flatiron, which appears in 1932, and then you don't get your first tanker ship until about 1938. Ships are in incredibly short supply until you can say the late 30s. Now, obviously, that wasn't the reality of 1900s. There was probably quite a lot of ships around. In fact, a lot of them would have been sailing ships. But this is what you need to be aware of, that if you're starting in 1900, you're very dependent on what is available within the modding community. And I'm not going to knock the modders, because this is very much a specialist area, and I can imagine that a lot of the vehicles being produced in this area are more of a labour of love because they don't relate to the vanilla game. Moving on to trains, again, it's quite interesting. Of course, there's no steam trains, although there's been a couple of good attempts at steam trains. And again, you don't really get access to trains until about 1930. There's the SY100, which comes available in 1929, and I think it's the 03N7, which comes available in 1930. Now, these are very good representations of steam trains, but of course they burn fuel. Now, another sting in the tail with respect to trains is your cargo carrying wagons are a little bit kind of irregular, is probably the polite way of saying it. So if you decide to run trains, even in the 1930s, be aware that you may not get access to all the different types of cargo carrying trucks. Though quite interesting, there is a boxcar that actually carries livestock that's available in 1900. The only problem is you don't actually have a train to pull it. Trains and ships out of the way, and now I'm going to move on to vehicles. Now, again, this is very much a quirk of the modding community. And some of the earliest vehicles are actually available for purchase with dollars. And the first trucks start to arrive in about 1916. And they are like, I think it's the Mack ACs. The first bulldozers and excavators appear in about 1919. Well, if you want to play purely to the Soviet side, the arrival of vehicles is a little bit later, 1929, 1930s. Again, your selection of vehicles can be quite restrictive, and there are a few kind of awkward things like snowplows. I think the first Russian snowplow doesn't arrive until about 1946, but I think there is actually a snowplow that can be purchased with dollars in 1916. So that poses a little bit of a challenge for if you're planning your economy. You also need to remember that a vast majority of these vehicles are pretty slow, and they also got fairly low carry capacities, though there are one or two exceptions within it. So if you're starting prior to 1925, something like in that era, you are going to be very much dependent on the horse-drawn carts mod. That now moves me on to the next thing that I've discovered about when you actually play a really early start. And if I come down to here, I'll just give you a quick look at what you're effectively working with is vehicles like this, horse-drawn bulldozers, ambulances. They all roughly got a top speed of 23 kilometers an hour. And if I show you the covered holes, with a very restricted carry capacity of 3 tons. This is something you need to remember when you are looking at maps you intend to play on, and also how you're actually going to run your settlements, because effectively at the beginning of the game you're linked very much close to the border if you're going to be importing goods. You know, a settlement this far away is going to be a real problem trying to get goods out with horses and carts. So what you're really looking at in the if you go for a really early start, is early game self-sufficiency. Now that does give a few problems with respect to some of the other restrictions imposed by the game, and this is the reason why I would say that if you want to start in 1900, there's no such thing as a hard mode, and you're going to have to use mods to kind of bend the rules of the supply lines and manufacturing to be able to create a really constructive society. Because my personal perspective, when I do start a really early start, it's going to be more role playing rather than building a super economy, because otherwise it just doesn't fit. And probably the best example from my test play is if I come into here and we look at fire trucks, you can see that you've got the horse-drawn fire brigade, which has got a top speed of 22 and a fire truck speed level of 8. I'm not kidding with this, guys, that I actually built a settlement with a heating plant, and I did what you would normally do, is you'd put the heating plant slightly out of town to avoid the pollution. And during the first winter, of course, it goes without saying, the heating plant caught fire, and despite the best intentions of the fire crew, they never got there. So this leads on to something else you need to consider if you're starting in 1900. That is, don't rely on heating. You've got to find buildings that have contained their own heating. And just to give you an example of where I'm going, if I go to construction residential, if I click on here, what you see, what I've done is I've been going through and testing all the various buildings that don't require heating, that in fact they've got their own self-contained heating, and I've actually just added them to a favorites list so I can actually see and use them. So this again is something else you need to consider if you're starting in the 1900s. And that also then leads on to another element, which means if you're going to build villages, and I'm going to emphasize villages, you're only talking about building villages of about 1,000 people. They've got to be very compact. One, so that people can walk around them. Two, that your fire services, ambulances, and whatever you want to run can get around. And that also means that your industries have got to be a bit close in, because what I've found is that if you've got key industries, you can't rely on buses. You've got to bring your key industries in so that your workers can work to those industries. So you're going to be living with a little bit of pollution. And that also relates slightly to farms. You know, a big industrial farm like this is going to be quite difficult to do in the 1900s. So there's no point laying one out. You're going to be working with small farms, possibly farming communities surrounded by fields which people can walk into. And then that leads on to what you really do need to consider to get a working economy, and that is what was probably very true in remote areas in the 1900s. That is self-sufficiency. Now, what is going for you though is that it is theoretically possible with mods to become self-sufficient with only using crops and wood. Now, a good example, which I'm already using on this map, and if any of you follow the series, you're probably going to guess where it's going to come to, is you've got buildings like this where you can actually make fabric from crops. And of course, we've got buildings over here which can manufacture coal. These are the types of buildings you're looking at. It's making coal from wood. And of course, you've got bricks from wood as well. Not this one here. So these are the type of mods that you're actually looking at. Now, another issue is fuel. And I think somebody actually mentioned this in the comments, that if you're going to use horse-drawn carts, you do need to draw on the mod. If I come in here and go into the gas station, I haven't used them on this map because it just seemed a bit pointless, but if you're starting in 1900, this is something you do need to consider. There is a building here called the horse feeding station. What that means is your horses and carts will actually use crops for fuel rather than the actual oil. And again, this is quite an important building that you need to get in, and of course, more importantly, you've got to keep it supplied with crops. That then leads on to the next dilemma, which is electricity, because technically back in the 1900s, there was no such thing as the national grid. So you wouldn't be getting remote power, which means you're going to have to generate your own electricity, possibly using windmills and other forms of power stations. So the options are quite limited. And then, of course, that then leads on to, which is probably one of the more difficult dilemmas of we're starting in 1900. That is what you could call your more advanced components. That's your electronic components, your mechanical components. Of course, there's still, if you're not close to a coal or iron field, which I'll talk about in a little while. And what Novu has actually done is he's actually created something to do with, if I show you the production line, he's actually created a horse breeder and wagon workshop, which actually uses wood, fabric and crops to produce wagons and vehicles. Now, what he's actually done is found a way round the mandatory requirements when building vehicles of using the more advanced components. And the solution you actually find is here in what he's called the horse feeder converter. And what you actually do is you feed crops, wood into the horse feeder converter, and it produces small amounts of plastic, steel, mechanical components, electro components and electronics. Now, what you need to be aware of this building is you can't treat, even though it's a factory, you can't assign pickups and deliveries to it. It must be hooked to the horse breeder vehicle or a warehouse of some kind which can take the crops in and out. I've been looking at this building and doing a bit of experimenting, but I think I can make a fairly good argument to possibly convince people who are more interested in the role play historical approach rather than the base game mechanics. Now, this is actually called the horse feed converter. Now, I personally would rename this to the local blacksmith, because back in the 1900s, most towns and especially villages in remote areas had craftspeople who produced the items that the community needed, because they couldn't depend on massive amounts of import, hence the producing clothes from crops. And that applies very much to the blacksmiths. Blacksmiths back in the 1900s made more than just fancy wrought iron gates and the stuff that you see now. They made the tools for the local craftsmen, they produced the sickles to harvest the field, and more importantly, the locks and all the components of the wagons, as quite rightly been proposed in here. Also, with the advent of electricity, it would have been the actual blacksmiths who would have made the components for the early windmills and power generation capability. I can actually vouch for this because several years ago I actually volunteered to take part in a restoration project of a power substation. We're very much now tied into electronics and computers and micro switches and things like that, because one of my first jobs was to take part in the restoration of an actual electric motor. Now, again, today electric motors are tiny and you'd need a magnifying glass to see the contacts. And I was absolutely amazed to be given a 10mm square bar of copper and said, these are the brushes that are going to go onto your motor. And this motor was big, and you could literally see that it had been handcrafted. It wasn't machined up in elegance. It had great big thick wires on it, which were nearly 1/4 of an inch or 5mm thick. So that's where you can argue that this building here is the local blacksmith. He can produce the materials, the steel and mechanical components and electro components to support your building, your power supplies and other buildings and which you need for to get your economy going. Of course, plastics and electronics is a little bit more of an issue, because plastics didn't really exist in the 1900s, and there certainly wasn't electronics in the sense they are now. I mean, when the first radios were coming in about, first crystal sets were around about 1910, 1950, going into the 1920s, but there's no way you'd describe those electronics. So again, this is something you're going to need to consider when you're starting in 1900s. Now, I know technically you can get them from the board, but then again, you've got to make money to be able to drive things. And more importantly, you need to get access to resources. And this then comes on to something else that I would recommend, is that when choosing a map to start in the 1900s, be very careful about where your resources are. Because again, if I use the context of this map, coal deposits like this far away from a starting location, just forget it. You're not going to get out to your coal deposits even at this distance until you've got the better trucks, as say into the 1930s and 1940s. So for the first 20 years you're going to be on a very basic economy, and it would be very tough going, and of course it'd be incredibly slow. Now, I could go on and on and on, but I think I've gone on way too long already, so this is where I'm going to stop. Hope you enjoyed this overview. Any suggestions, opinions on a 1900 start, feel free to chuck it in the comments. That's out the way. Let's just move on to your comments actually related to this map. Now, I've had a couple of them. First one is somebody suggested that I turn on this here. Now, I did try this back a little while ago. The problem is that the open holes won't carry these excavators. So, and what actually happened was when I switched it on, the excavators just stayed in the construction office. So I'm a little bit tied here. But what I am thinking with respect to moving out to here, which the way forward is developing this area here, and eventually what I'm going to need to do is get at least a road crew and a construction office out here. However, at the moment I'm a bit reluctant to just go out on a limb, because I can't afford to lose the vehicles out here as well, which is a bit of a problem. I think this series is proving a little bit of a challenge, and I think rather than just keep talking about your comments, I'll talk about them as and when I encounter them. So what we're going to do now is start doing a little bit of planning. Now, I've had to try and think of a way that I can start moving goods around pretty quickly, and it's got to be railway, but that's given me a bit of a dilemma, because my original plan was to actually construct the rail construction vehicle and build all this from scratch, but I'm got a feeling it might be a little bit of tall order. And the other thing I would also need to do is work on laying out this area with respect to gravel delivery, because that will affect where the tracks are. I think we're going to start with something else, which is prefab panels, because again, the dilemma is going to be, somebody suggested using timber tracks, but if I come in here, whoops, no, you'll see that the top speed of wood-based tracks is 70 kilometers an hour, but my inclination is to go for concrete-based railways, because if I build the wood-based railway, then I'm going to have to come back over and upgrade it, and then that means I would either have to wait until I'm ready to run electrified lines, because of course we're going to have to start with fuel, which again is itself is another bit of a problem. What I have decided to opt for concrete-based tracks. I think what I need to do is get in a prefab factory in here, because I think if I show the prefab factory, I think it's we can find one in here. Is it prefab factory? Cement plant, prefab panels here. See, prefab panels need gravel and cement, but cement is a lot easier to transport than large quantities of gravel. So what I'm thinking is that I could possibly get a gravel plant in here. We're just going to come in here. It's going to have to be a modded one, because I'm going to need a small one to fit in that gap. Plus, this is going to be really just producing prefab panels for the railway. Got to find it. Small cement plant, small panel factory here. And I think that will... I've got a power line there. I did try this out before I started the video. What I'd like to do is just get that over a little bit more. Hopefully that's going to work. We should be able to bring the road out under here. In fact, I've just had a thought. Let me just take that out. We're going to have to unpause and get these guys off the road here. Just pause, repause it. And actually, let me just put a mud road across there. I've got to protect that substation on unfortunate. Then we can put that in there. That can come to there. And what I would like is an open store here. Store the prefab panels. That fit in there. On the So we've now got that in there. We've got a prefab. Now this isn't going to be a priority build. This is just planning for the future. And the other thing I wouldn't mind is a cement silo or something. The stone silo. This is something else that you would use in the 1900s. Yeah, we'll go with that. Then we'll just put that there. And what that should do is be able to feed into here, so that we got a regular supply of cement from there. Though where we're going to get cement from, I don't know. I think so. I think that's the cement works there. Next thing I want to do is up here. Now what I would like here is the capacity to ship lots of gravel. This is going to be my primary gravel supply depot for the main areas of the map out here, because there's very little gravel out here. I mean, I'll be building other gravel depots like up over here in this corner, because they've got some coal here, and that's where we'll probably will be producing the prefabs and cement in the long term, because that would be closer to the coal deposits. For construction purposes, the gravel's going to come out of here. Kind of thinking what I would like, we got two gravel stores here. I would like to combine them if possible, but how can I do that with a conveyor pipe engines? Of course it's going to be this one, isn't it? Don't like that, because I want a road out through here as well. That work. So if I put a road like that, I could get a road underneath that. Maybe just tilt it a little bit that way. It's connected to there. If I could get a road through under here, look at that, and then we can take you up to there. I can bring a road through to there, like that, and we can hook up. Well, we can split that one as well. So we've got a road here. We've got a link out here. Now, what I would like to do now is I'd like to come down a bit like that. So we're in this. What am I doing this with? This is that's a road, counts as a road connection, so that should be okay. And then we're what I would like to do is have one depot on this side, like that. Maybe over a little bit more, and then I want another one just here like that. So the idea is that I have two actual depots here. That. And then hopefully I can get, oh yeah, look at that. I can get a road through here. And can I get a road out? The steep incline. Hit you game. Okay, let me just, I'll just try and drop that down a little bit. Actually, what I could do is take this away a little bit. This way. Want to put it out. It doesn't, nothing says that it doesn't have to be close to that terminal, and by the time I'm building this I should have plenty of resources. So what we could do is, I mean, originally I wanted to bring, this road can go up to there. I can get under here, or under, could get, you can come through there like that. Cancel that and cancel that. I know the road can come through here, so, and then what we'll have is a road connection that will come down to here. So the idea is the road connections will be behind the rail tracks, which will come out here. What that means is I'll have 2 gravel loading depots here, which would possibly, one could do that side of the map, one could do that side of the map. So that's the gravel layout done. Now the next thing I want to do is work out what my rail construction thing here. Again, this is very much to get me started. It's not going to be the main train production or track laying area. This is just, I just feel, so what we need is something about there. What I would like to do is put a road across about, like, road across like that. Now this is where the fun starts, because there's a bit of a shortage on mods for actually laying track. There's a railway construction office here. I mean, we got these which will allow, and we got these very small ones here for laying track. And what I would like to do is bring a, oh okay, get a bonus conveyor there. And we're probably talking about possibly putting a track layer here with a conveyor connection to there, and then production line. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the only train yard I've found that isn't the vanilla one is this one. And I mean, this one looks pretty cool. I think it's made by Off the Rails, but don't quote me on that. And what I would like to do is build this as well, so that what we'd have in this area is the rail construction thing, the ability to build trains, which is a requirement of hard mode challenge, and of course what we also need in here is a depot to store the trains in. So this all needs to be in this area here. I don't think I'm going to plan that now. I was going to try and do it, but I think I need to build this road first. Plus I'm aware that I'm a long way into this video and I've actually done nothing to do with actual gameplay. So I think just to finish off this planning section is we need to come right over here now. And what I need to do is start planning my town here. Now what I'd like is for the town to go this way, so that all the main coal processing power plants will be on this side. And sorry, I've just got to turn this back on again because we're out of range of excavators, so we're going to need to try and do this without actually having to level the ground. In fact, I think if we go to mod storage, now what I do need is something like a warehouse with quite a lot of storage in, so that we can deliver the goods to the shop that's going to get us started. I think that's about the best I can do, isn't it? Because eventually we will be bringing the goods in and food in by train, but to start with we're going to need something that's going to deliver. I think we have to put it there, aren't we? Just going to hook that to there. And what I need now is a shop, and I'm not sure shop wise. Now I do actually like, where is it? Not that one. Where is it? I'm gonna find it. It's this one here. I mean, this is quite a nice little shop, but it doesn't have a lot in the way of storage. But it kind of par fits with the what's required. I'm not totally convinced. I don't want to do the separate buildings anymore because I don't think it really fits. In fact, let's zoom in a bit. Let's take a look at it. No, I don't actually like that. Where is it? What's the one building I'm looking? I'm looking for. I mean, we could go for the corner market like that. This has got a bit more. I mean, this stores 45 tons of. I mean, that could be. That could actually work, couldn't it? So if I put the corner market there, I think we're going to go for the corner market here. Like, so say something like that. And we'll put it this way round. And what I'm thinking is, because that will deliver everything I need. And I think what I would like to do is take a road out like that. And then we'll connect the road through to there. That should supply all the needs to the citizens. Now, one thing we are going to need out here is a fire station. And this out here, we're going to go for standard one. I'd like it on this side because when push comes to shove, we would need to protect the coal production over the requirements for the citizens. I'm just going to put the station right on that corner there, and we're going to put a bus platform in as well. Small bus platform. I think if I can put the bus platform maybe just about there, because we're going to probably have housing and accommodation here. If I put it that way. No, I think we'll put it that way, man. And then take a road out like that straight away. So we've got a shop, we got fire station, we got the bus platform. Of course, we're going to need to get education in, but I'd probably put the education over here, and we're going to need a clinic. I'm just going to put the hospital in as well. We'll actually put a small clinic in here. What I'm going to try and do is keep the size of these towns quite small to begin with. I think we can put the clinic in there, and I think that's where I'm going to stop, because we're going to need to build out these roads here. So we're just going to start letting the game run, because I'm aware that I must be at least half an hour into this video and we haven't actually done anything. Now, the problem I've got here is the fact that we've got all these fields here which we need to harvest. Now, the problem I've got is I've got all these fields I want to harvest, but there's actually more crops out here than we can store. And what I'm going to do is come down to here. I've done here is I need to pick up fuel from here. And then we're going to load fuel here, and what we're going to do is actually sell fuel. I'm sure I sent a fuel truck here. Where are you? What are you doing? He was already running. I don't understand that. I'm not exactly sure how he was able to deliver fuel, unless because I've got fuel set here, he was automatically going and finding that fuel from the only source that's available on the map, which is up here. So what I'm gambling is, if I show you up here on my exports, is I'm already exporting food. Wow, this guy's not hanging around. We've got a new vehicle type. So what I'm planning on trying to do is consume as many crops while we're actually harvesting as possible, so that the crops that aren't being harvested will be flowing into these areas here. So we're going to get the maximum number of crops, and more importantly, we should make a pile of cash as well. But as somebody pointed out in the comments, I don't really want to buy extra vehicles just to facilitate this. So we're going to work with what we've got. The other thing I'm also planning on doing is that's 28 tons. So we're going to pop off all that there, and then I'm going to open up the crops, take that back to 30 tons. So we get another 21 tons of crops in there, and what I'm going to do is get 72 tons of crops in there. So I'm going to effectively try and squeeze the crops into every possible available space. Now the next thing I need to do is I've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields here, and at the moment we've only this distribution offices is only on 3 of them. So what I need to do is, this is medium field 2, this is medium field. These have already been harvested, so what we're going to do is flip out these. It's medium field, and I need medium field 2. Oh, I don't know what happened there. I think I've just took out that one there, haven't I? I'll just add that back in. I'm not sure, I think there's a duplicate there. Oops. This is medium field 2. That one. Okay, take that out. And what that means, I should be able to add you and you. And this one here is going to be, so I need to get out medium field and medium field 2 again. That one's there. What are you? You're medium field 2. And we should be able to add you. So I need 2 more fields that have been already harvested. So it looks like medium field 10 and 11 have been harvested. We have to try and find those. There we are, medium field 10 and 11. And we're going to add you and you. What that should mean is that if there's an opportunity to start harvesting, which is what we've already got going here, that crop should start flowing into these fields here. It looks like that medium nice edge medium field 2 is actually already finished. So so what we're going to do is try and cram as many crops into this storage as possible. What I really should have done is try to keep that out of a silo, but eventually we'll rebuild that. The other thing I'm hoping to do is get these conveyors finished here. So I need to check up on what my construction crews are doing. You're down to 1 job. Is there anything I can put these guys on? Oh, the other thing also is, while I'm talking about it, I've got the chicken farm that we laid out in the last part is been set up here, and what I've done is the wagon here that's supplying the meat to the shop is coming exclusively to this chicken farm. The meat output from here now is going to export. The other problem we've got is the doctor's office here. Now I haven't given him an emergency vehicle at the moment because I've got sufficient coverage from this one for emergency vehicles. So at the moment I'm quite happy with it, just the doctors here providing local services, and maybe when we get some money we'll put in another vehicle into here. You can see he's not actually treating patients, but he should be making everybody feel a little bit healthier now. You can see because this is now built, this is up to 92%. So overall happiness is building up. The population is slowly rebuilding again. I would really like to finish this, but I don't think we can inside the construction office. I'm a bit worried about if I turn this on, it's going to drain all the workers away from the other areas. So I think at the moment what I might do is get these guys kind of providing additional logistics supports for these roads. So these roads have been built. Wow, these guys aren't hanging around. Have they actually? Okay, let me just check this. I don't want that. I mean, we're actually making a little bit of money. I want to check to see if these roads are being built or whether they're all totally, because we are working at very extreme range. And somebody actually suggested that I should build a supply depot out here, which I want to do, but the problem I've got is that I've got such a limited selection of trucks. It seems a bit pointless sending a gravel truck all the way out here with 3 tons of gravel on to drop off in an aggregate store, or another truck that's going to pick up 3 tons to take it to a construction site here. I mean, if a truck's going to labour its way all the way out here, you might as well be the one from the construction office. And it's going to be very targeted, because the real problem I've got at the moment is snow plows. And just to kind of come around here, because I don't have any snow plows. If I show you here, we've got this one here, which is this back snow plow, which I think is just too expensive to buy. I can't afford it. So what I want to do is just keep labouring on. Once we get access to proper snow plows, which can move a bit quicker, we're going to have a bit of a splurge on doing that. The other thing I'm also thinking is maybe I need to turn this guy back on again. That's another reason why I was hoping to sell fuel and the thing. Wow, where are you coming from? Yeah, I think we might dry up the fuel supply here. If we're not careful. We really need some more workers in here, but I don't have enough workers to be kind of going around. So I'm thinking if I can push some, we can keep pushing some steel in here, purchase steel into here, we might actually get these conveyors finished. Right, looks like we finished this one, so what we need to do is get this one finished. I really would like to get these finished. So just assign you. This road is built, so kind of get you there, into there. These guys are being built as well. These are all being built in. Pretty nice. This one probably is a bit too short for those, so they probably need support from these. Get that going. Yeah, the fuel's building back up again, so we're okay. As long as this stays over 50,000, I'm quite happy to keep importing the steel at the moment. I say that the factor is just trying to push things forward. I can get this built. What I really would like to do then is possibly build that. In fact, how much? I only use 1.9 tons of steel. I think we can get that in there. Now, the other thing I would also like to do up here is, how can I explain it? At the moment I'm sending the tractors and harvesters back to here. We're getting a queue here now as well, which is another problem. But what I'm thinking is if I can put a small road vehicle depot in here, I don't need anything that's really big. There's an 8-slot one there. So say, for example, if I can put this in here, like that. And then, again, we'll just assign you. Get that going. We're slow with 59,000 at the moment. I think I am going to indulge in one small extravagance. I think I've got a slot here. Yep. And what we're going to do is we're going to buy a roller. I don't think it costs that much. And we're going to put this on the right through there. Now, the reason I bought a roller is that we do have factory connections and things to do over here, and we have more factory connections to do going forward. And I think that having that roller is just going to save me time and the cost of having to send workers out from here to just get that factory connection finished. And what we really need is a paver as well to go with it. But we've got this just building in quite nicely. I could probably take this off of the distribution office now. So what is it? Concrete plant we're looking for. So what we really need now is just for it to deliver the cement there. How is the steel going? So we are getting a little bit of steel coming through here. New vehicle type, that looks interesting. Yeah, because one of my other concerns with laying my own track was the fact that whether I actually did have access to a track laying train, because the one that I was originally looking at is no longer available. So it looks like we've actually got a track laying thing. We're getting a few workers in here. I do wonder with the winter coming that we do need to heat this. This is something else that somebody pointed out, that we do need to heat the school and the doctor's office and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. Maybe with this truck is actually kind of, I'm not actually sure where you're going, because you're not got nothing, you've got no steel. So what you get? Not exactly sure. Fish conveyor. I've got absolutely no idea where you think you're going. Are you picking up steel from here? You don't pick up any steel. I've got a job for you. No. You go to there. I think you'd be better employed through the winter bringing logs up to the heating plant here. How are we doing crop base? So we've picked up actually all these. We're now picking up these. And so we're getting lots of crops flowing in, but what's the storage like? This is 672 tons. This is 430. You're running at 776. I guess that we've got what? Say 150, 300, 450, 600, probably 900 tons. So we can't store that just at the moment. So I think we can just keep pushing our luck, trying to get some money and get things flowing in. Right, I think we're going to build that construction, not construction office, vehicle depot. Let's build that, because that will keep the other guys going. I would like to build this, but I'm just worried about this 623 people, because if we get 623 people and trying to get into there, we've got a bit of a road connection here that could be built. Well, that's finished. I think I will assign. Have you picked up these? Is that built? I think. Where's my road crew? What I am going to do is add factory connections to this now, and see whether you pick these up. We'll just assign you. Yes, he's now picked up the 2 factory connections, and what we'll do, we need that, and we'll assign those as well. Also get, can't do that one, can do that one. It's the second factory connection then. That's going to give me a problem. Oops. Oh. Well, if you want to build it, you can build it. You won't build all of it, but actually call all vehicles home. Never noticed that before. It's scary, really, isn't it? You can actually see where your construction vehicles are. Never noticed that before. Fascinating. Come on, guys, you can do it. We're still running at 55,000 at the moment. On the 1st of November, we've got about a month to go. In fact, we're going to go about halfway through the month. Actually, what's the fuel? Yeah, we're running at 19 tons. We're going to run about halfway through November, and then I'll switch off the fuel exports. These guys are still grabbing as much of these crops as possible, and we're getting crops from here. So this one's going really well. I'm kind of thinking, if I build this prefab factory, there's no profit in that. Let me just take a look at the money. How are we doing at the moment? 656. We've lost a little bit of money at the moment with respect to exports, but what was the imports then? That's, yeah, it's the steel that's costing. I think we're going to find our little friend, and maybe it's time to shut him down a bit so I can build up a bit of a cash reserve. Where are you? Okay, I'm going to give you one more little round trip, and then you're going to do one more. So you can drop off one more load, and then that's when we're going to shut him down. How are we doing over here? Go right out over here, because of course we're going into winter now, so these long range projects are going to slow down very well. So we're going to have to start trying to think of a winter project if we get the conveyors finished, of course. My instinct is this, because then that means I can try and bring even more fields in, or have even more crops, which will allow us to get things done. This building is an issue, left, right and centre. Oh, it's, I mean, the wood pitch extractor, quite nice. I think, how are we doing here? And we could add another, a little bit of cash. I think I'm going to add another. Oops, all about you. Sorry about that. But there for the winter is your winter job. I think I'm going to add another. What we call it. Get another one of these 2-horse ones, and we're gonna find you to see if we can get a little bit more coming into here. I mean, we are building up a little bit of reserve here, so that you could argue that we can bring this online. As I say, I do want. Right, we've now finished that conveyor. Yes. Are you? Do this while he goes turn round. So that gets him out of there. I think I will add. I think by building that will be advantageous, but to do that we're going to need to build these through here. These will be a good winter job. And then we'll couple that with trying to get this built. How quickly that was built, well, probably with the roller. I think that makes quite a big difference. Right, I think it's time to shut down the fuel exports. So we're just going to remove you and you. Just put you there so that you. I think we are now starting to run at capacity. Let's have a look. Yeah, we got 457 tons, so we're not going to get much more into there. We got 849 tons there. How about over here? Got 600 and we got fabric factory here. Oh, I could have exported fabric as well, so it was slipped up there. So we got a little bit of capacity in there. a little bit of capacity in there. So we got, you can say we got 30 tons in there, probably 150 in there, and say be generous, 100, 150. So we're going to lose about 400 or 500 tons of crops, but I think we've got the maximum way out, and we are going to go into the next season with all our warehouses absolutely jam-packed, which is really good. And of course, with winter coming up, we're just gonna have to consolidate what we've already got. We've got this crew working. We've now got this full of gravel, so what I can do now is basically remove the gravel processing from there and just switch you just purely to asphalt. So we're no longer having to deliver gravel from here. What that should mean is that somewhere here is a very small gravel truck, which what we're going to do is we have to send you there. Trying to get some more quarried stone into here because we're kind of a bit behind at the moment. But I don't have, so I mean it's only 3 tons, but he's only going a short distance. I think that is going to probably be enough for this here. I'm wondering whether I should be, no, I think if we get another truck's okay. Right, we're just coming into winter now. So we're very much at the point now where we're going to lose our crops here. We'll just do a final check. So yeah, if you take what we're harvesting plus what we've got, so we're probably going to lose about 50-60 tons from there, 50-60 tons from there, generous 50-60 tons from there, probably 100 from there, 100 plus from there. We did finish this field, but it's got 10 tons in here, which is waiting to be picked up. What we're gonna do is just allocate you to, yeah. We're going to pick up quarried stone, and you're going to deliver it to here, and that will get an extra 3 tons a cycle. And what we're going to do now is kind of go into hibernation mode for this, for the winter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through till probably about January before the start of the next video. So this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you found it interesting. And until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.